Ms Ratnam.
Thank you, President. My question is for the Attorney-General. Today is National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Children's Day, and last week marked the first anniversary of the meeting of the Attorneys-General to discuss raising the age of criminal responsibility from 10 to 14 years old. I'm deeply concerned to see that the national process seems to have failed, with Queensland publicly declaring their opposition to progress. Here in Victoria, we've had the Our Youth, Our Way report released by the Commission for Children and Young People, and the calls of 50 groups representing lawyers, doctors and Aboriginal organisations, all of whom are urging this government to protect Victorian children under 14 years from the harms of incarceration at such a young age. Attorney, you've previously deferred to the national process when I've asked why Victoria hasn't acted to reform this harmful law. So I ask now, is the Victorian Labor government still committed to the failed national process, or like the ACT, will you now act to raise the age of criminal responsibility?
Government.
President, I thank Dr Ratnam for her question and indeed pointing out the importance of protecting our most vulnerable in the community, and in this instance Aboriginal children. And I would highlight the amazing report, Our Youth, Our Way, that was released about a month ago, and would urge all members to have a look at that, particularly as it details the voices of young people directly. It's pretty compelling reading. In relation to the national agenda, Dr Ratnam, there is indeed an imperative to have a conversation at the national level. I think just issues raised by Mr Quilty yesterday, differences of legal application across states is undesirable and best to avoid it if you can. Having said that, it's no secret that there's not a lot of priority on this issue from that forum. I can confirm that there are Attorney Generals in that forum that want it to remain on the national agenda, so we can continue to have the conversation, and that's not an indication that everyone's going to agree. In relation to consideration of raising the age here in Victoria, I would point out that it just needs to be undertaken with careful consideration alongside the delivery of alternative services to ensure that there's adequate support for those children aged 10 to 13 that would ordinarily be caught up in the justice system. We certainly know that the youth justice system this cohort are our most vulnerable, and there is an overrepresentation of Aboriginal children, bearing in mind that they are very, very small numbers, but they do exist, and there is more Aboriginal children than I would like to see caught up in this. We are committed to early intervention that keep children in this group to stay out of the criminal justice system. There's regular meetings with ministers that are very interested in good outcomes in this space. So you've got Luke Donnellan, Gabrielle Williams, Minister Hutchins, and indeed the Police Minister. These are topics that we are committed to making improvements. We want to strengthen partnerships that support rehabilitation. We want to deliver and strengthen individual programs and interventions. We want to ensure families are well supported to improve children's behaviour, and we certainly want to engage young people in education and training as a positive pathway, as opposed to any offending behaviour. This is a key issue through considering any changes, is to ensure that the justice system uses the right tools to continue to support community safety. And I do thank the organisations that continue to have this conversation with me. It's a regular topic with the stakeholders.
On the supplementary.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Attorney. One of the consequences of our current laws is that most children who are incarcerated are on remand and ultimately do not receive a custodial sentence. Between 2010 and 2019, 98% of all children aged under 14 years were in this category. In 2019, the most recent year with available data, every 10 to 13-year-old in prison was on remand. Not one single child was actually sentenced to jail. This is an indictment on Victoria's bail laws and a direct result of Victoria failing to raise the age of criminal responsibility. Notwithstanding your response for the need to have a national conversation to make sure there's consistency across the jurisdictions and the need to improve services, Attorney, I'm interested to know, what are the actual barriers to the government now acting to reform these harmful laws?
Thank you, President. I thank Ms Ratnam for her question. The figures that I can give you the most recent figures showed that in the last year there was around no more than 44 children in the age bracket of 10 to 13 that were on remand, and no sentenced children. That's 44 kids that, if we raise the age, we need to make sure that we have alternative service options to ensure that those kids can be supported and indeed diverted away from the justice system. So in direct response to your question, we need to make sure that we have all of the support services in place to deal with the very small numbers of children that are currently caught up in the justice system, and we are doing that regardless of whether you raise the age or not.